Hello, good evening. This is Lauren Morris with Conservatives for Ukraine. I am over in Bucharest, Romania at the Rebuilding Ukraine Forum Conference. Today is day 3. We have had 2 days of conference at the Palace of the Parliament. It was very well hosted. Video and audio was great. It was full of all kinds of speakers. We had senators, we had ambassadors, we had chancellors, we had ministers of defense, we had great video and audio that was there with the event. Our CEO and our founders really hosted a nice event, and the panelists were really great as well. So, as far as the first 2 days of the conference, the first day of the conference, we went from about 9 in the morning to about 5 in the afternoon, and it was just one speaker after another. There was quite a bit of dialogue between the officials from Romania and the official that came from Moldova. And it is very important for this region, for Ukraine and Moldova and Romania to work together to stop the illicit aggression of Putin. So the speakers talked about railways and transporting the grain. They have had to come up with some creative and new innovative ways to get the grain transport out. And since the invasion, their grain transport has dropped to about half because they haven't had access to the Black Sea. And when they began transporting grain through the Danube, well, Putin attacked that as well. And so they've been having to transport their tons and tons of grain through the railway system. So that has been a high priority for Moldova, Ukraine, and Romania to work together to establish lines of export. Romania has been excellent in accepting refugees and providing refugee services for the people of Ukraine who have literally come with the clothes on their back. And so they talked about that. We had other people from Ukraine who have various coalitions and organizations, and they talked about the bombing that has gone on in the Odessa area specifically. And it's something that we don't hear about a lot in the news, but they lost tons of products and things that they export. We have to remember that Ukraine is a major food exporter, and they make all kinds of products, and their exports have just gone way down, and so their grain silos have been bombed, their chicken facilities, their beef facilities, their farmlands, their materials. They also said that when the dam was bombed, that it was just a devastating impact on Ukraine as well. And many animals died. People in entire villages were wiped out, their businesses, their schools. They gave us a lot of data in these PowerPoint presentations that show what all Ukraine in certain areas have lost due to the bombing, and it's quite tragic indeed, if you can imagine. So the rebuilding process is going to take a lot of diplomacy, and it's also going to it's a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight by any means. They still talk about that the war is still ongoing, and they do not expect for it to end anytime soon. They don't really have any projections in that regard. So anyway, they talked about development funds, and the European Union development funds for energy, transportation. Their entire tourism business has just been wiped out because of the war, as you can imagine. Airports have been closed. and those kinds of things. But of course, their priority is their agriculture and safety and security, for their citizens going forward. And it is their intention to stop this aggression once and for all. And they say that the citizens of Ukraine and the soldiers, everyone involved in the defense of Ukraine, have shown incredible bravery, not only in fighting for the security of their country, but they're also fighting for the values that they believe in, of freedom and sovereignty and their land. They talked a lot about building trust between the parties, so that they can attract investment, because federal money and state money and money that comes from other governments is not going to be enough. They need the private sector to come in as well. People need to feel hope, and they need to feel at home. And so they asked for everyone to have platforms of dialogue. And so I want to say to you, people who have been engaged here in this Conservatives for Ukraine, the Conservatives for Ukraine Facebook page that was started by Trevor Loudon, this is a platform of dialogue, and we need that dialogue. I believe it's a platform that will be more powerful than just, exchanging the recent outrage of the day article and what is going on in the war. So they say that nothing will stop us from winning together, and the violence that it imposes its will on others. They also say that what is happening in Israel, it's the same enemy, it's the same battle type plan, and it impacts the entire world because it's an illicit, expansive aggressor. What I noticed from the people that got up and spoke, these senators, these diplomats, these ambassadors, was the ambassador from Canada was really impressive, and they're great speakers, and they talk on a very simple level. Why is Romania so important? Why are we here? Romania is going to be the hub of communication, a center of communication, and that is because Romania is Ukraine's most important neighbor and strategic partner and friend. They just talked about stability for the world, safe routes for the grain and for the products that they need to export. They talked about the priorities of reform. The anti-corruption component is huge. It's huge for every country, not just Ukraine. And investment, crisis response, government reforms, the critical sums of money that they need, the Western alliance that is so important for us to preserve. Maintaining focus over the years, not losing focus on the long-term plans. They use the word pragmatism a lot, and the toolbox for implementing the peace plans, because they said it's one thing to win the war, it's another thing altogether to win the peace. They talked about modernization of energy and complete and total integration with the European Union. And this is what Putin did not want. Putin may have blamed it on NATO. Putin did not want Ukraine to be independent and sovereign and integrated with the EU. It was about the Black Sea. It was about the resources. And that includes the people as well. Ukraine is important to global food security. The 2.2 tons of grain that they export needs to double, and they need a multimodal system, and they need it upgraded. They need budget and energy stability, and they talked a lot about the private sector and keeping it competitive in order to attract private sector money. And that's just more than defense contractors. That's, for actual rebuilding process, banking, insurance, those kinds of things, materials. They talked about the raw materials that they don't have to make the weapons that they need to make. Let's see. They talked about water purification, treating the industrialized water. This has to do with the dam that was bombed, and it was just the shocking consequences from the dam. They also said that the attacks from the Russians along the Romanian border with Ukraine are going to continue. They talked about safety in the Black Sea and the sea routes. They talked about how to demine that area as soon as possible so that they could get the sea routes going. They've had to be very creative and create new sea routes. They talked about the Russian propaganda and how easy it is to manipulate perception, and that fighting fake news was one of the hardest things to do. That people in the United States are already experiencing war fatigue, and that the pro-Russian narrative that has infiltrated into the conservative movement is highly dangerous, and that, we need to fight this war. They called it a hybrid war because of the propaganda. They talked about grants and loans and conditions, and that Ukraine is an agricultural giant. And so anyway, that is all I want to say right now. It was a great 2 days of conference. Today we went to a museum and partook in some, Romanian culture, and tomorrow we're going to do some more of that. And the rest of us here from the United States and Canada, we're having a great time together. I personally am learning a great deal about the nonprofit business, and how it works. So thank you, Conservatives for Ukraine, and all that you are doing for this platform of dialogue. And please keep it going. We know that we have things happening in Israel right now, that those are on the front burner, but Ukraine is not lost in the mix of that. Don't let the media let you think that they're lost in it. They're not lost in it. They're not going to be forgotten. But it's also important to us, for us, to keep this platform going and show just how much we love the Ukrainian people and how much we sympathize with the terrorism that is happening in their country. So thank you once again, Conservatives for Ukraine, and Slava Ukraine.